concrete wall are one of the few traces of the anti-invasion defences that still remain today. But the attackers' attention would quickly focus on the heart of the defences, the pillboxes.
The job of taking these pillboxes fell to the 6th Pioneer Division, who were specially trained for just this task. But as they approached the target, about here, they came across barbed wire. Once they'd cut or blasted their way through the wire, they then came within throwing range of the pillbox. They could hurl smoke grenades, which effectively blinded the defenders. And as they got closer, they could lob in hand grenades or even burn them out with flamethrowers. But this attack had cost the Germans dear, and they'd lost about half their attacking forces.
The purpose of the coastal defences was not to prevent an invasion. That's impossible. Instead, it was there to provide a delay for an invader. This gave time for forces to assemble and to counterattack. Every hour was absolutely vital.
British reinforcements would have massed inland, rapidly forming the next line of defences. But back on the beaches, German forces would have overrun the fortifications.
Faced with overwhelming numbers, after 3 hours of fierce resistance, the defences eventually collapsed. This meant that the Germans could land their main force of 7,000 men plus supplies down there. The invasion had well and truly started.
The war games suggest that the first day of invasion would have belonged to Germany, with almost 90,000 troops on British soil.
By the second day, there was bitter fighting all along the south coast. Despite the British defence, the Germans still managed to advance 8 miles inland, and the British withdraw to a defensive stop line nicknamed the Winston Line.
As the Germans fought their way from the coast, they came across bridges. Most were defended by pillboxes, but this one at Alfriston was protected by trenches and barbed wire and by the men from the local Home Guard. Now, these chaps knew that they had no chance of defeating the invaders, but they could harass and they could delay them at every bridge and at every crossroad. It would have been an effective tactic, but one which would have cost the Home Guard dear.
It was at this point in the war game that the Royal Navy arrived, creating havoc amongst the German transport ships. At the same time, their army continued to advance inland, but meeting pockets of resistance, booby traps, and constant ambushes. With the removal of road signs, German soldiers very often didn't know where they were.
The villages of southeast England were rapidly overcome, and as the invaders pressed forward, their every movement was reported by Home Guard scouts. But the Germans did not consider the Home Guard to be legal combatants, so any that were captured risked being shot.
With the Royal Navy causing absolute chaos in the Channel, the German army ashore has tremendous problems. They're short of reinforcements, they're running out of ammunition, and critically, they have very few, or virtually none, of the tanks. Tanks, which is an important part of the Blitzkrieg battles, which had been so successful previously.
The layers of coastal and inland defences would have delayed the Germans exactly as they were intended to. But the battle for Britain would still have been in the balance.
By the third morning of the invasion, the German army has advanced 15 miles inland, right up to the Winston Line, and fighting is now fierce. However, German forces have now lost 30% of their soldiers, either killed, wounded, or prisoners. They're reduced to about 60,000 soldiers. And while they can't get reinforcements, more and more British soldiers are arriving in the area. This is the critical moment.
Over there lay the hastily assembled mass ranks of the British Army, reinforced by 2 armoured divisions comprising some 500 tanks. By now the Germans are running out of ammunition, and they lacked the necessary support of heavy armour, so the advance ground to a halt. They would never get beyond here.
The German invaders never even reached the GHQ line, the main British stop line. Instead, the German High Command was forced to order a withdrawal. But with a Royal Navy behind them, and with massive British forces to their front, what follows is a catastrophe.
After 1 week, the invasion was repulsed, and of 90,000 attackers, less than a quarter escaped unscathed. But the Home Guard, the Army, and the villagers of southeast Kent, they would have paid a terrible price. But at least they would have had the satisfaction of knowing that they had defeated the only invasion of Britain since the Norman conquest of 1066.
Next week, the final chapter of the defense of Britain, the hidden story of an underground army. They remain one of the most closely guarded secrets of the Second World War, a network of men and women who were trained to form the British resistance.
That's next Monday at 9.